Alright, anyways, this is how my scale is going to be. Like, it's going to be between like 1 out of 5 to 5 out of 5. These are like the ratings. 5 out of 5 is like meta-defining. I'd say stuff like, what are some meta-defining cards right now? Maybe like Call the Wild, Fireworks, even though it's not like a new card. Like Fireworks definitely meta-defining. Ravaging Ghoul. These are like really good cards. 4 out of 5 cards, like I think like it's like a good card used in like a good competitive deck. So it's like you don't consider cutting it. It's like maybe like something like Wrath or something. You know, you don't really consider cutting Wrath. I guess like cards like Innervating Will of Growth are probably meta-defining, like 5 out of 5. Wrath's something like 4 out of 5. 3 out of 5 is like it might make the cut. Maybe something like Ethereal Conjurer. You know, it's in some tempo mages. Maybe a better card for that one is, let's see, the 6 mana mage card. I had an example out in my head. Like there's a 6 mana mage card, Faceless Summoner. It's like in half the tempo mage list. You know, it's like somewhere between 2 out of 5. Like it's like the 30th best card in your deck. 2 out of 5 is like, you know, maybe you want to add something in, but it doesn't quite make the cut in a competitive deck. 1 out of 5 is like you just don't use like Magma Rager. Alright, so I'm going to go from the Druid card here, Enchanted Raven. It's a 1-mana 2/2 beast. It's nothing exciting. It's a beast though, so you can use it with Mark of Discharge. Okay, so I guess I'm talking about a little bit about it. There's like comparable minions like say Sir Finley and Druid. Like Druid Hero Power is not amazing, I think, and most of these like aggro druids would prefer Sir Finley, and that's 1/3 compared to 2/2. The way I rate this card, I think it's kind of like 3 out of 5. It's not. It's like, first of all, I only see this card being. I'm gonna rate all these cards based on what I. So I'm gonna go back. I guess I should have said this first. So I'm gonna rate all these cards based on what I see in the meta game, like top decks right now. Maybe I'll like think of like some insight based on how I think the top decks will change. But for the most part, like if the card is good, but I don't see it in any good like if I don't see the card being used in any deck, then I probably won't be rating it too highly. Enchanted Raven, the only deck I see it being used is Aggro Beast Druid, right? Like you wouldn't really use this in Yogg Druid, Token Druid, Ramp Druid. It's more about some kind of like Aggro Beast Druid, and I think it's like a bottom of the barrel competitive card. I think it will, like if that deck is being played, I think the deck will, like Raven will be in it, but it's not like gonna make the deck make or break the deck or something. It's like maybe like the 25th, 30th best card in the deck. Not something like super exciting. 1 mana 2/2 has that, not ridiculous. There's 1 mana 3/2s already. There's 1 mana 1/3s with big upsides. I mean, 1 mana 2/2 is just not ridiculous. Living Roots is 1 mana for 2 1/1s, which is the same amount of power, and it's so much more flexible. It's a spell. You can use it for Arcane Shot. It's a spell for spell power. It's Fandral Synergy. And this is like minor beast synergy. I mean, it has beast synergy, and it's not ridiculous, right? Our next, Kindly Grandmother. This is like a very similar card to Haunted Creeper, 2 mana for a 1/1, but summons the 3/2. If you add all the stats together, it's a 2 mana for a 4/3. If you add all the stats of Haunted Creeper, it's a 3/4. Haunted Creeper's like the stickier version of this, and generally these Death Rattle cards, you'd rather have the stickiness of it. But again, like Haunted Creeper is so powerful. Like I would almost rate Haunted Creeper as full power, like 5 out of 5. It's like that good. I'm gonna rate Kindly Grandmother as 4 out of 5 because it's I don't think it's like I think it could be used in a lot of different hunters because it like sticks around for Houndmaster. Assume that the big bad wolf is a beast, which it is. I actually saw it. It's really easy to use with cards like Abusive. I can see Abusive making come back in 100 more Houndmaster. I think the standard mid-range hunters would use this card over some of the 3/2s that they use, like King's the Lack or the Toad. It's a pretty good minion. Fireland's Portal, this is, outside of legendaries, this is the hardest card for me to think about. Like, out of all the basic cards so far, this was the hardest card for me to rate. So the way I'm thinking about this is, deal 5 damage is worth around 3 mana. Like Fireball's 4 for 6. I think damage is around a 3 mana value. Summoning a random 5 cost minion. Most 5/5s actually look through the client, mage, and neutrals. The average 5 cost minion is between like 4/4 and 5/5. I think like 5/5 or maybe 4/5. It's like something around there. Yeah. I think the reason why Fireland's Portal is pretty good is because, first of all, it's not something like Flame Cannon or what's it called? It's not like Forbidden Flame where it doesn't hit face. Like you can, the 5 damage, because it can hit face, it's really flexible. Like as a tempo mage or like a lot of these mages, you can't ever have like enough burn, right? That's why like freeze mage is even adding in torches, like because burn is so flexible, you can use it for removal, and if they don't have any minions, you can start burning face. It gives mage more reach. Like right now we're playing around 2 fireballs, but it's like hard for them to have that many fireballs. So I see this card being better than Faceless Summoner because Faceless Summoner is a 6 mana summoning a 5/5 and a random 3 cost minion. This is 1 more mana. The 5 damage is around the same, like stat wise. Like I value the 5 damage around the same as the 5/5, dealing 5 damage. Like I guess I value like dealing 4 damage same as the 4/4, dealing 6 damage same as the 6/6, if that makes sense. Like mathematically it's around the same. And then you're paying 1 more mana for a random 5 cost instead of a 3 cost minion, and Faceless Summoner is like basically around like 3 out of 5 in the power rating. It's like between 2 and 3, right? It's like Faceless Summoner is in half the tempo mages, and it's not in the other half, like depending on whose list it is. So it's kind of like a little bit below bottom of the barrel competitive cards, and you think about using it, you don't. It's kind of like just on the cusp of being used. I think this is stronger than Faceless Summoner. One of the things about Face Summoner is you can play it on curve on 6, whereas Fireland's Portal, it might not be as easy to play on curve as the minion, but like the thing about that is, as mage it almost doesn't matter because you can like, tempo mage, like part of it isn't just trying to play on curve, it's like you can react to stuff, like deal 5 damage and summon a minion in the same turn. So I'm gonna rate this card between 3 out of 5 and 4 out of 5. Like part of it's like it doesn't really make that much sense to rate stuff like 3.5 and 2.5, but in a way it does. Like because you could just like make your rating 1 to 10, but then it's like I don't really know what 9 and 7 would be. It's just I'm gonna rate this card 3 out of 5, but it just means that it's like almost it's like kind of, I guess maybe not even through 3.5. Let's just write like 3 out of 5, make it a little bit simpler. It's like I think it could very well be used in some tempo mages. I think it'll make the cut in a lot of tempo mages. Compared to Fire Elemental, that's actually pretty interesting. 1 more mana, 2 more damage, and then minions maybe a little bit weaker than Fire Elemental. But Fire Elemental's good. Like Fire Elemental's like a 5 out of 5 card almost, or 4.5 out of 5. Like it's one of the best cards. Oh, this is a hard one. Okay, so this is like the beginning of maybe mid-range Paladin. Ivory Knight. The card I want to compare Ivory Knight most is Azure Drake, because it's like, okay, so at first I was compared to Azure Drake, right? It's 6 mana instead of 5 for 4/4, and you draw a card. Like since you discover a spell compared to drawing a card, I think like if you draw a random spell, it'd be worse than drawing a card, but discover a spell, I kind of rate equally to draw a card from your deck because you have some choice on it. So it's like 1 more mana for Azure Drake, but I thought it was quite weak when I was thinking about it like that. But when I started thinking about the restore health to your hero equal to its cost, I actually looked through the client for Paladin cards. Paladin has a lot of junk. Like look at this. Paladin has a lot of junk spells. I counted around 30 Paladin spells, and I think like 6 to 8 of them were above 4 mana. If you do the math on that, because you can discover 3 spells, like each one spell has like somewhere around like 18% chance, I believe, of being like a decent like 5-6 health. So I guess like eventually I started thinking about this card more like Antique Healbot, right? Antique Healbot was very good, and it was 5 mana for a 3/3, heal for 8. This is 6 mana for 4/4. Mathematically, the 1 more mana makes the 1/1 is around the same. So it's like if you -1 crystal, 1/1. It's the 5-mana 3/3, and then you're not only are you drawing a card, you're also restoring some health to your hero. And mid-range Paladin back then kind of used heal bots, at least the versions I liked, and you didn't really like heal bot a lot of times because like a lot of times you want to play aggressive in some matchups, but these mid-range decks you need to play like flexible. Like you need to heal sometimes and just pressure other times. Like mid-range Paladin, you pressure control decks and you heal against aggro. So it's like this card's like really flexible. I think most of the time you're healing for 6 around on average if you just take the biggest spell. So it's like a little bit worse than heal bot, but then you're also getting a spell. I think it's actually pretty good. But because mid-range Paladin itself is kind of weak, I can really only rate this card like 3 out of 5 because the deck that it belongs in itself is not very good yet. I actually think it'd be a pretty good card in mid-range Paladin, but mid-range Paladin is quite weak. Tuskar Jouster. Tuskar Jouster is kind of weird because it just doesn't heal you. Tuskar Jouster 5-mana 5/5, but it's different, right? If you want to compare it to Tuskar Jouster, then 5-mana 5/5. Tuskar doesn't draw a card, and Tuskar, let's say, heals you for like 3 or 4. This heals you for more than Jouster on average, because you just don't win the joust. Ethereal Peddler, 5-mana 5/6. This battle card really only has use with Gang Up and Burgle. I don't really have much to say about this other than Rogue has a lot of competition on 5 with Azure Drake. Like every single Rogue is like pretty much always used Azure Drake. Even when Sludge Belcher was in the meta, like Rogues didn't use them that much just because Rogues have a lot of competition on 5. And then it's like Rogues already have like big, like it's just a vanilla 5/6. There's already a neutral 5/6 for 5, I believe. This card's a 1 out of 5 in my opinion. Just, you don't even think about using it. It's not in it's not in any competitive deck that you would consider using it, and it's not even like if you want to play like that like tier F deck, it's not even good in that deck. Not really. Barnes. I made a tweet about Barnes, so I thought it was good. I'm not sure, so I'm gonna I guess think about more. Barnes is so some of the insight I want to bring to Barnes is it's almost like a full powered card because 4 mana for a 3/4, but you get a 1/1, right? So if you add the 1/1 to the 3/4, it's like a Yeti. Like it's a total of 4/5 in stats. Whether you want to split up the Yeti or not is around like neutral. Like some decks do, some decks don't. But again, like Yeti is not really the benchmark anymore. Like no decks would use Yeti anymore. Barnes is very good with cards like Ragnaros. Good with Ragnaros Lightlord, both Ragnaros' Tyrion, Sylvanas, Cairn, Highmane. So I think it'll belong a lot in Reno N'Zoth decks or just any N'Zoth deck. If you're running like 4 or 5 good Death Rattles and maybe like 10 other minions, 1/3 of the time you'll get something pretty good here. I could see Barnes also being like... There's also some other decks I might want to split up, right? Things like Flametongue Totem, Power of the Wild. Unfortunately, I think Token Druid has too much competition on 4 with Fandral and Violet Teacher. And then, like, sure, you can Barnes into the Fandral and Violet Teacher, but then you have to have, like, Innervate and go off from there as well. So I don't really think it's good in Tempo or Token Druid. As far as like Shaman goes, Shaman just has too many good cards. I don't see people want to use Barnes just because you want to split up like a body for Flametongue. As far as like cards go in mid-range Shaman, Thunderbluff, Valiant Flametongue, Manatide Totem. I mean, there's certainly some that could be good. I'm just not sure, but I do think that Barnes is really good, and this is why I was saying mid-range Pally, because I can see Barnes being good in mid-range Pally. You split up, so you have like more targets for Blessing of Kings and Defender of Argus. Mid-range Pally naturally has a lot of decent minions. Like, you would probably run it in a N'Zoth shell, so you have like Tyrion, Rag, Lightlord, even. The other deck I can, and maybe like Cairn Sylvanas, that's a lot, like 33% chance, maybe 25% chance to hit something really good. Like, if you look at like other good decks like Zoo and stuff like that, it becomes too iffy. They have too much competition in those slots, like Dark Iron Dwarf and Gormok. There's also the thing with Shadow Step with Rogue, but it's just that's not really a good archetype right now. Like something like Reno N'Zoth Rogue, where like the 1/1, I'm assuming you can Shadow Step it. and then it comes back as full power -2. That's pretty sick if you can do that. But so another thing I want to bring up with this card is that it's a copy, right? So if you actually take in like some long fatigue matchups, you don't like lose. Like the important thing is if you play this in N'Zoth deck, you will never like pull your N'Zoth out and then you won't be able to play your N'Zoth. It's just like a copy of N'Zoth. You don't lose it. But yeah, unfortunately, I honestly like too many decks. I'm gonna rate this 3 out of 5 because it's like kind of hard to fit in existing decks, and the N'Zoth decks in standard right now aren't S tier or tier 1. I don't think there's any tier 1 N'Zoth decks for now. Last card is the Curator. 7 mana for a 4/6. This is like a mid-range card. It's like a mid-range card that you build your deck around. Like something like mid-range Pally, you know, some kind of like mid-range Druids. Most of the Druids have been mid-range in the past, like even now. Mid-range Shaman, these like Dragon Warrior. The important thing is, I guess like you can compare this to Ancient of Lore if your deck has enough synergy. A 4/6 with Taunt is much better than a 5/5, and then you're drawing between 1 to 3, 0 to 3 cards. If you draw 3, it's better in like Ancient of Lore. Ancient of Lore is a really good card, but part of the reason why Ancient of Lore is good was because you don't just get minions, right? Like you draw into Force Nature Savager. That's part of the reason why it's so good. But again, like Curator, you just get a lot of value. I can see a lot of mid-range decks using this as a mid-range power spike. If you think about like what Beast, Dragons, Murlocs are, Dragons, most likely Azure Drake, Beast, you can think of, it's like hard, but maybe like Kodo. Murloc, you can get Murloc Knight, you can get Sir Finley. I don't see any deck that would like existing deck that has an easy time fitting in everything. Mech is useless, I'm just gonna say for now. Like, this is not GVG anymore, it's gone, but... Okay, so, analyzing this from Dragon Warrior perspective, since Dragon Warrior is a deck that actually runs out of steam, the Curator is like a perfect card to like feel like... Because a lot of times you don't have like the stuff, like you start running out of steam, but this could be decent Dragon Warrior. It's obviously easy to get Dragon. Beast and Dragon Warrior is hard, you can use the 5-mana 5/5 Stealth, or you can use Kodo. Murloc, you have Sir Finley, that's just 1, so it's like kind of iffy. But again, like it kind of guarantees that you draw Sir Finley. Like say you only have Sir Finley, you kind of want to draw it eventually, because that Warrior Hero power gets worse and worse a lot of times, and you know, you can really try to change like your hero power against control to like Hunter or Warlock. So that's like, I don't know, it gives you another out to tutor for Sir Finley. I can also see this being used in normal Dragon Warrior, or normal Tempo Warrior. Oh yeah, also I'm missing a Beast. Warrior has... I'm terrible at names. Warrior has a Fierce Monkey. That's definitely going to be used over the other ones probably. So I mean, there's some Beasts. If you think about it from mid-range Paladin perspective, it's another card, another deck that could use this as fuel. You can use Azure Drake for Dragon, you can use Kodo for Beast, and you can use Sir Finley again. I don't necessarily think you'd want to use Sir Finley in mid-range Paladin though, because you probably want to use Justicar, and then you know you couldn't really do that. Paladin Hero Power is actually good for mid-range Paladin, so you could use like Murloc Knight as well, or even like the 2/1 Chargers. 2/1 Charger, I think it's kind of weird. Like every deck is kind of weird, but it's like, if there's a deck that could use everything very well, it'd obviously be like really good. It's just like, I feel like whatever deck does end up using Curator, if there's any, it's like borderline, and it's like not that easy to add and everything. There's like consistency issues, whether if you draw these cards before you draw Curator. Last deck I want to bring up for Curator is Druid, right? Druid has easy time for Beasts, I guess, because they have like Mount Raptor. Dragons, you can use Azure Drake. Murloc, you can use Sir Finley. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm putting this as 3 out of 5. So the cards, like going back to everything, like Raven would be 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5, 3, 1, 3, 3, mostly 3 out of 5, like borderline cards. Kindly Grandmother I think is the best card revealed so far, and Peddler is the worst. I can even change Ivory Knight to 2 out of 5, I think. I forgot what I said when I was going through it. Might have been 2 out of 5, but it's just since mid-range Paladin's not a deck, like not in the metagame right now, it's like iffy because there's no good Paladin decks right now yet. Oh yeah, there's also Corrupted Seer. I was wondering if people are going to use like that as their Murloc. It's just so weak though. Like say you want to get Corrupted Seer as like your value card. It's like a Consecration. It's a 6-mana for 2/3, and it's not even Consecration. It hurts your own minions too.